Okay, so welcome everyone to week 11, which is becoming exit ready. So we've covered 10 weeks. Now we're going to start looking at how to become exit ready. And we have Cliff Spolander on the call, and he's been with us for the last 10 weeks, helping us with any queries at the end and passing on all of his expert advice. So Cliff, I will let you go to the next slides and let you start presenting, because it's going to be a really real fun one, and I'm looking forward to listening to what you've got to say.
Thanks, Dave, and good morning, everyone. So basically, the first 9 sessions of this course, you were introduced to Alex from KPI Software, where you were shown that by implementing some small but very key incremental changes to his business had a massive compounding effect on both his profit and his cash flow. You were shown that how to improve cash flow by looking at the various cash flow drivers, and how to reduce expenses and overheads. And then you looked at how to increase your gross margins before looking at actually growing the business by, first of all, looking at your current client or customer base, where you look to then increase the average transaction per year, as well as the average transaction value. Now, once all of those areas have been looked at and are operating efficiently and effectively, only then did we look at customer acquisition. And then last week you were introduced to Sanjay, who showed you how important it is to know your number, which is the amount of money you're going to need to retire on to live the lifestyle you want without the fear of ever running out of money. And this week we're going to look at how to become exit ready. This is me. Now I started my career off as an officer in the South African Navy. Moved to the UK, and that's where I started. I bought and sold several companies. I franchised one and licensed another in 5 countries. I've also written a book with the Cash Flow Code, and I've just about to publish my second book, The Oven Ready Business. And so from my point of view, I've been on both sides of the fence. I've both been the seller and the buyer, and I do understand the frustrations on both ends. And so I'm here to really look at how to help owners get to that point where they can exit the business successfully. So before we start off, we're going to look at the current landscape and what that really means for us as we grow and prepare our businesses, especially in the next 5 to 15 years. We'll then look at the harsh reality that every owner faces and why there's a huge need to have an exit strategy in place. We'll then explore the reasons, or really the causes that are behind these statistics, and also the pitfalls we need to be aware of before we look at how to create an exit strategy and what that actually really looks like to help us avoid becoming one of those statistics. And then to wrap up, I will leave you with a key takeaway. But before we begin, I would like to carry out a quick poll. Feel free to use a chat or just simply shout out on the actual Zoom. But I would like you to choose an option that best describes you at the moment. Choose 1 if your business is just you and a laptop. Choose 2 if you have a few employees, but you find yourself to be at the center of your business and the business won't be able to run as successfully without you. Choose 3 if you've got employees, but you're also finding you are constantly firefighting pretty much on a daily basis. And choose 4 if you're able to take a 3-month holiday and no one would ever notice you had gone. So either type your the number into the chat or just shout out.
2.
2.
I think mine's a mixture of 3 and 4.
3 and 4. Okay, that's good. And Dave?
Yeah, I'm going to go for 4 now.
Well done.
My job here is done.
I think everyone wants it to be 2, really.
Yeah, I would say I'm probably a combination of 2 and 3, actually, because I do have employees as well.
I think 1's a very, very small business.
Yeah, and I did take, well, it was a year off, and the business continued to run.
Mhm.
And actually, most of the clients didn't notice I wasn't there. So
That's good.
yeah,
So
not
that's
quite
a big
sure.
step.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Well, I didn't mean to take a year off. It wasn't choice. But I think I'm not so sure after post-pandemic. I know definitely in the last few months it's slipped back to 2. It's been a really hairy few months, this bit. So I really want this to work.
Fair enough. So you can say 4 is probably the holy grail. If you can achieve that, then I think you're well on your way to achieve a really successful exit. But I think most people find themselves between 1 and 3. And the reason why I do this poll is that I'm finding a lot of people automatically rule themselves out of exit planning. And if you take my wife, for example, she has her own business. She's an education consultant. Now, she will never be able to sell her business purely because she is the business. However, she still has to plan her exit, and she still has to create an exit strategy because it applies to her as well. And so when I mention the term exit planning, some very common comments or remarks that I often get is, well, it's just me and my laptop, and the business isn't worth anything to a buyer. Or they say, well, I'm never going to sell. I'm going to keep working for as long as I can. Or they say, well, my business is just far too reliant upon me. I can't see a way out. And because of that, no one will probably buy it. And all people say, well, sometimes my business is just too small to sell and it's not worth anything anyway. Now, these are all fair comments, but the problem is that these owners are looking at their companies or their businesses in isolation and are forgetting about their personal and their financial goals. It is true that many smaller companies will probably never sell, but the owner will still have to exit at some point, as we all will. So the question is, do you want to maximize the return for all your hard work and time that you've plowed into your business, or do you want to simply throw it away? Now, I would hope you see the folly in investing and working in your business for all those years to see it disappear. So I would really encourage you to start planning your exits from your business, no matter the size of the business you have, no matter the plans or aspirations that you may have as well. Because exit planning is not just about selling your business, although selling is just one way of exiting a business. It's about exiting your business successfully. And by successfully, I mean ensuring all your business, your personal, and your financial goals are met, providing you with choices and opportunity to live the lifestyle you wish to aspire to. And the key word here is choices, because all too often I meet owners looking to sell the business or to exit, and they have no choices, and they are forced down a particular route that they don't really want to go down. So have a quick look at the current landscape. These are the latest figures from the ONS website, and it gives you a pretty good idea of how the SME market dominates the UK business landscape. Now, there are around 1.4 million companies employing more than one person, and companies that are employing between 1 to 50 people account for around 97% of the UK market. So given the sheer number of companies of that size, and the fact that the baby boom generation will be retiring in the next 5 to 15 years, and also the Gen X and the millennials will start to think about selling or to consider their retirement, it will make this a buyer's market, and it will be a huge challenge for owners to stand out from the crowd and to attract the right buyer or investor. Now, the reality is that life isn't easy for us as SME owners. The odds are stacked against us from the very beginning. Again, these stats are from the ONS website, and it shows the survival rates of new companies starting from 2007 to 2017. And you can see that about just over 40% get to see their 5th year, and just over around about a third get to see the 10th birthday. So the odds for us as owners aren't great. Now, to compound that, here's some more stats, and I think you've seen a similar slide before. Out of the 1.3 million companies employing 1 to 50 people, more than 90% are not sellable in the current condition. Of those that are for sale, less than 20% will sell. Furthermore, those that do sell, less than 5% will sell for what the owner expected to sell for. So not only are the odds of survival stacked against us when it comes to selling our businesses, there is less than 1 in 5 chance of actually selling it and even more when we want to sell for what we need to sell for. So the question is, and the question I have is, what's causing these statistics? Now, what is driving these numbers, and what can be done about it? Now, I've looked at well over 1,000 companies now, and having conversations with those owners over the years, I have seen firsthand the consequences of not being exit ready can have on the owner as well as the business. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that every owner out there wants to offer some great products or services. We all want to solve a problem or fill a gap in the market. However, every owner that I come across works incredibly hard and is very passionate about what they do. But despite all of that, what I'm seeing time and time again is that owners are not realizing a return on investment for all the years of hard work and sacrifice. Effectively, they are leaving money on the table. Some of them are retiring poor, or at very best having to pare back their standard of living. Some are forced to continue to work because they can't afford to retire. And despite all the efforts of hard work and hours they put in, the company is still not worth anything, or not worth what they were hoping for. So a few years ago, it became increasingly frustrating having these conversations where I was seeing owners either being forced down a road that they don't want to go down, or having to have no options available to them. So I looked at two things. I first of all looked at what's causing this. Why is this happening to so many owners? And then I looked at what I've done in the past, look at what I've done in my companies to allow me to grow the business and then to exit successfully. Now, what am I doing differently? And this is what I found. And we'll look at the causes first, at what's causing these problems. Now, having a look at all these companies and owners, I found there to be 3 kind of reasons or 3 trends that are causing these statistics. The first is having an incorrect perceptual understanding around exit planning. Now, there are generally 6 reasons that I come across most often that are causing deals to collapse. Secondly, owners are not preparing themselves adequately enough for what I call the 7 Ds. And lastly, owners are lacking a process, a procedure, system to follow to help them get them from where they are now to where they need to be in an exit ready position. So we'll explore these in a bit more detail now. The first is perception. And a common trend I see is that owners are planning the exits far too late. Now, many people don't realize that it ideally takes up to 5 years to prepare and to sell a business. The typical question that I get after saying that is, why 5 years? Why not 2 years? Or 1 year or 3 years? And it's a fair question. And the reason why I say 5 years is firstly, it does take a lot of time to get a business ready for sale. It's not like selling a house where you can do the garden up and give it a lick of paint. Because you've got to remember, the owner is still having to run the business. So 5 years gives the owner time to realign the business and prepare it for exit, especially when it comes to preparing for the due diligence phase. And secondly, from a buyer's perspective, we want to see positive, sustainable trends, because that will give confidence and also add value to the business. Because buyers typically want to see 2 to 3 years worth of accounts, this 5 years allows the owner to show the buyer what is really happening within the business and what is realistically achievable in the future. Because very often, I see businesses where the sales and profits are fairly static, but then all of a sudden things jump up over the last few months. And that's when the owner has conducted some huge marketing or sales activity, and then they use that growth to value the business. And in most cases, if not all cases, buyers see right through that, because no one knows if that growth is actually sustainable or not. So time allows a buyer to see what's really happening to the business and what can be realistically achieved going forward. Next is valuation. And from my opinion, this is the biggest reason why deals collapse. Valuation is incredibly emotive, but it's also very subjective. And that is why if you would ask 100 people to value a business, you're going to probably get 100 different answers. So by looking at the facts and helping the owner remove a lot of the emotion will also definitely help to realistically and objectively value the business. Next is risk, and buyers are fully aware that there's always going to be an element of risk involved. But it's the owner's job, it's the seller's job to help minimize that risk as much as possible. Because SME owners need to realize that it's far easier for a buyer to purchase or to acquire a company with a turnover of 2 to 3 million than it is to purchase a company of 500,000. Because the larger companies have resources, they tend to have management teams, whereas the smaller companies don't. So the owners need to look at how they can reduce the risk within their own business as much as possible. And a great tool I use to do this is the risk dashboard. And it's a great way to find out what areas within your business are vulnerable and that could be used to potentially reduce the value of your business. Next is transferable value. Now, this is very often the forgotten element of business valuation. Transferable value really is what a business is worth to a buyer without its previous owner. So in other words, it's determined by how well the company can run without the owner. And transferable value should also not be confused with profit either. And I'm currently working with a client who's a classic example of this. He wants to sell his business in the next 3 years for around £1 million. The issue is the finances, the financials all stack up. Financially, his company is worth around £1 million. However, because the business is so reliant upon him, his experience and his expertise to produce the goods, there's going to be very little value that can be transferred to the new owner. So there's no guarantee that the business will run or be as successful when he leaves. And because of this, it's pretty much made his business unsellable. And that's what we're currently working on at the moment. Number 5 is deal structure. And this is the second biggest reason that I find that causes deals to collapse. Now, a lot of owners believe that there's only one way to structure a deal, and that's to receive a huge check on completion. Now, as I say, this may happen, but it's incredibly rare. Knowing that there are various ways of structuring a deal will help feed into the exit strategy as well as the personal wealth strategy, and also give the owner as many options as possible, especially from a financial and time perspective. And lastly, brokers. Now, you tend to find the really good brokers work with companies worth at least 2 to 5 million or more. When you enter into the mid to lower market, especially with valuations of less than £1 million, you tend to find brokers are not so good. And the ones that I've dealt with, and there have been many, are really underserving the market. They are giving owners false hope by agreeing to represent the business. And they do this because, firstly, they don't really know what makes a business sellable. And secondly, they don't know how to value a company properly, apart from applying a typical 3 to 5 times multiple of EBITDA. The main aim here is to sign up as many companies as possible. And they typically charge a seller a marketing fee of anything between £3,000 to £40,000. And if they sell the business, well, that's a bonus. Yet other brokers charge a buyer a monthly fee or a percentage of the sales price. And there are some brokers who do a bit of a hybrid model where they charge both the buyer and seller. But either way, this mid to lower market needs a complete overhaul to help access and help the companies get sold. The next is the lack of preparation, represented here by the 7 Ds. Now, 2 of the 7 Ds are positive. However, if the owner and the business is not prepared for exit, these 2 positive Ds could end up being bad. Then out of the 7 Ds, there are 5 that are bad. However, if the owner and the business is prepared for exit, then these 5 Ds will not be as bad. So let me just quickly explain what I mean. Looking at the 2 positive Ds, the first one is deal. This is where you potentially could meet someone at a networking event, or you could hear via the grapevine, or maybe you even get approached directly by someone who's looking to buy your business. Now, this is what I typically do. I typically approach owners of market to see if they want to sell. Now, if you know your number, which was discussed last week, and if you know how much your company is valued, and you know how to structure your deal, then you're in a very strong position to proceed. In my case, most of the owners that I've spoken to who are interested in selling either had unsellable businesses, or they were too owner dependent, or the valuation the owners were putting onto their businesses were absolutely ludicrous. And we're talking like 20 to 30 times EBITDA. So if you and your business is not ready, you could potentially miss out on a potential sale. Next is decide. And if you decide to exit your business, it's a real luxury, and I'll explain this in a minute. But this is when you decide you want to sell, exit your business, and providing everything's in place, the sales process should not take too long. Now, my record for acquiring a business is 6 weeks, and my record for selling a business is 4 weeks. So it can happen very quickly, provided everything is in place and ready to go. Otherwise, it will take a bit longer and probably will have an impact on valuation. Now we'll look at the 5 bad Ds. And the first one is distress. This is where the owner has simply had enough. They are stressed out, they're burnt out, they just want out the business. And we call these owners motivated sellers, because all they want is for the pain to go away and to move on to something else. And this normally occurs when there's a typical bottleneck within the business, or a lack of a system or process, or maybe even an issue within management. Next is disagreement, and these disagreements are typically between co-directors or shareholders. Now, this only becomes an issue when there isn't a robust shareholders agreement in place that spells out exactly what needs to happen should a disagreement arise. This invariably results in one of the party or parties leaving the business and not being able to realize the full potential that the business had. Next is disease and disability. Now, none of us knows what's around the corner, and that's why having a plan in place to cater for these eventualities is vital in protecting your business and your wealth. Now, unfortunately, I can give you loads of examples of this. Typically, what happened last week, where an owner who just turned 60 had a heart attack at the end of October. He had a quadruple bypass, and he phoned me last week to say he wants to sell his business. And he explained the situation to me. And because this whole thing has scared him, he realized that he doesn't want the stress of running the business anymore, and he wants to spend some time with his family. So I asked him some key questions, and to cut a long story short, he doesn't know his number, he doesn't know the value of his business, and what's worse is, crucially, every decision in the business has to go through him. So he controls everything. So when I asked him how he's running the company at the moment, given that he's still in bed and he's weak and recovering, he said that he's dealing with suppliers and dealing with customers via email, and he's communicating to his staff via WhatsApp. Now, I'm not sure how sustainable that model is, but unfortunately, I'm looking back at this. If he had spoken to me 2 or 3 years ago, he will not be in this position now. But we're looking at what we can do to help him, but this is definitely going to affect the value of the business, and depending on how long his recovery period is, his company may actually go under. Next is divorce. Now, I don't think any of us here get married with the aim of getting divorced, But this is something that will certainly have an impact on someone's wealth. And again, I've had to do a few divorce cases where I had to value the businesses in the last 2 or 3 months. And lastly is death. Now, some people tell me that they are never going to retire and they are planning on working to the day they die. And I'll probably count myself in this category, which is fair enough. But death is not an exit strategy. Death is simply an event. And if the business is not prepared for that event, it will leave a whole lot of problems for the owner's family and the employees. So again, it's important to have a plan in place to help those who have to deal with this event in your absence. And the statistics show that around 50% of owners will be forced to exit the business. So that's when I say, if you decide to exit, that's luxury, because half of people won't have that option in the exit plan. So it's vital to always be prepared and to have an exit ready business. And lastly, a lack of process. Now, I'm finding more and more owners who love what they do, but they find themselves getting bogged down in the mundane running of the business, where they're just simply firefighting or sorting out problems, where they feel they're taking 1 step forward but 2 steps back, and they are struggling to get any traction to move the business forward. So for a start, many owners don't know what their business is worth. Now, I have found that owners typically overvalue the business by at least 2.5 times what it's actually worth. So they don't really have a clear understanding of where they are in terms of themselves personally, their business, or the financial position, which was discussed last week. However, for the most part, a lot of owners do know or do have a general direction of where they're wanting to go. But many owners don't know the exact details of where they need to be. And then more importantly, whether or not they know where they are or where they need to go, they don't have a process, they don't have a roadmap of how to get them from where they are to their destination. So by looking at these statistics, we found that we discussed a few minutes ago that there are 3 main causes that we are seeing that are coming through, and that's basically having an incorrect perception or understanding around exit planning. So there's a lack of preparation, and also having no process, or sometimes there's a combination of all 3. So what I've done is look back at my journey and the things that I have done and the approaches I've taken to acquire, grow, and sell my companies. And we start off by creating an exit strategy by first getting clarity. Now I would like to, if you could imagine, if I were to blindfold you and stick you randomly somewhere on this planet, give you a map and a compass and say, right, make your way to this little village in France, what will you do? Now, for those of us who understand about navigation and map reading, will know that you have to do 2 things before you take one single step. And that is, first of all, to find out where you are on the map, your location, and then find that little village in France. And then once you have those 2 areas, those 2 points, you know where you are on the map, you know your destination. Can you then plan your route and navigate your way to your target? And the same applies to your business. We need to understand where your current position is from a business, personal, and financial point of view. We then look at your vision, your plans you have for the future. And at that point, we know where you are and where you need to be. So all we need to do now is use a map or a master action plan to help you get you from where you are now to where you need to be. And as soon as you have clarity, you have control, where you control your business rather than the business controlling you. And it's only through consistently working on your master action plan, your map, over 90-day cycle periods, will you get to your destination, to your target. And that is to successfully exit your business and begin your new chapter of life, whatever that may look like for you. Now, life may throw you a curveball, and if that happens, you will be in a far better position to deal with any of the 7 Ds. So this process is all about focus, because all exit planning is simply good business strategy. It's about growing your business in such a way that it increases its transferable and financial value, while at the same time growing your business in such a way that it attracts the right buyer. So if you were to imagine exit planning is like a three-legged stool. The first leg is your personal plan, and the other two legs is your business and your financial plans. Now each leg has to have equal importance and must be addressed to ensure you create an holistic and stable platform. So looking at your business plan, you will understand your financial and transferable value of the business. You'll be able to benchmark your business within your sector, as well as seeing your business through the eyes of the buyer using the VFD's due diligence report. You'll also be able to determine what type of buyer you're aiming to attract. Looking at your personal plan, you will also see how ready you are to move on to the next chapter of your life, including where you are at the moment, as well as how prepared you are should you be faced with one of the 7 Ds. Then looking at your personal plan, as we discussed last week, we will analyze where you are financially and carry out a wealth gap analysis. Now, should there be a gap, and in most cases there tends to be a gap, we will then formulate a plan on how to bridge that gap, both from a personal investment strategy as well as how to increase the value of your business. And finally, the next part of it is to have an absolute crystal clear personal and business vision for the future. Now, this will allow you to know your current location and your destination. So all we need to do now is find a path to move you from where you are to where you need to be. Now, there's one thing that really plagues a lot of SMEs, and that is owner dependency. And that is something that really needs to be addressed in order to achieve the highest valuation possible. Now, this is the typical owner-centric model, and this is what decimates a business valuation, and in a lot of cases makes a business unsellable. Now, if you remember the story I shared with you about the owner who had the heart attack a month ago, now this is his model. Now we need to move away from this model to a more of from an owner-centric model to a more of a value-centric model. Now in this model, the owner is still in the middle, still at the center, but in this case, he or she is surrounded by 3 key people. First of all is the wealth planner, then it's the estate or tax advisor, and then it's the exit planning advisor, which could also be the accountant. Then on the outside, there are other business functions. Now, I haven't listed all the functions just because I don't have the space to, but they are functions within the business that can either be brought in-house or contracted out. So for a typical SME, they don't need to employ an HR manager. They just need to contract an HR consultant. They don't need to employ an IT manager. They can contract an IT firm to look after their systems. So some of the areas may be brought in-house, but for the most part, they can be contracted out. And I call these services the SAS, the Special Advisory Service. And much like the military SAS, they get parachuted in to sort out a particular problem and then get out. So if you've got an HR problem, you call your HR consultant and say, sort this problem out. If you've got a health and safety problem, for example, you phone your health and safety advisors and get them involved, because this will then allow you to run your business while the specialists do what they're good at doing, which is a lot more efficient for you. Now that we have a clear picture of where you are, where you want to be in the future, we have control, and we now need to start the journey. Now, there will be a number of tasks that will need to be completed, and this will form your master action plan, which is essentially your map. Now, your map will be divided into 2 phases. The first phase is the de-risking phase. Now, this could include things like creating a will, having a power of attorney, maybe drawing up a shareholders agreement. What we are doing here is protecting all the wealth you have built up personally and within your business before we go on to the next phase, which is the growth phase. In the growth phase, we will look at all the aspects of organic growth and growth through acquisition if we need to be a bit more aggressive. We then break each of these phases down even further. So if you recall the first 9 sessions of this course, we looked at Alex from KPI Software, and we took you through a journey that showed you that what a compounding effect has on making small incremental improvements on the turnover, profit, and cash flow. And the same applies here. So if you think about picking apples from an apple tree, it will make no sense at all to climb 5 meters up a tree and pick all the apples at the top. From my point of view, it's just simply too much hard work and it's too risky when they are perfectly good apples on the ground or at head height. So we do the exact same thing here. We focus all our efforts firstly on all the high value, low cost items. We then go to the high value, high cost items. Once that's done, we look at the low value, low cost. And if you really have to, we'll go for the low value, high cost. But that's more of a if you really wanted to and had the time and the money to do so. So the master action plan is carried out over 90-day cycles where you get to choose up to 5 tasks to work on within your business and up to 5 tasks to work on personally. And because this entire process is designed to give owners as many options as possible, some owners will want to take this journey on their own. They have the map, they have the route, they know how to get themselves to their destination, and that's absolutely fine. Others like the security of being a group. They like to be with people undertaking the same journey because they see there's strength in numbers. And if an owner is struggling, they have the resources and the input of the group to help them move forward. And yet for others who need a bit more of an accelerated approach, there is a one-to-one option there as well. So now that you are clear as to where you are, where you want to go, you have a plan, you have a map, and you know how to get there. And now it's all about being consistent and consistently reviewing the business and the personal tasks every 90 days. And then choosing some more tasks and reviewing those 90 days later. And by consistently working on your business, you will start to create value within your company. You will start to create a team around you, your very own SAS, your special advisory service. The business will become less reliant upon you, which means it will also increase both in financial and transferable value. That will then lead to a better work-life balance. And you also will feel more personally prepared for life post-exit, as well as if life should throw you any curveballs. You'll also know your number and have a personal investment strategy to help bridge any wealth gaps that may be there. So here's the overview of the entire exit strategy in action. Now, we will review the business, the owner, and the personal financial position every 12 months and make adjustments where required for the following year. We then take the items from the master action plan and we'll work on those every 90 days. And this enables us to measure both the tangible and the intangible areas, and you can keep track on your progress year on year, quarter by quarter. Now, this process is designed in such a way that no matter the size or type of business you may have, the process remains exactly the same. The only difference is what you will focus on as an owner, but the actual process will remain exactly the same. So whatever exit strategy you choose, it needs to be holistic, it needs to be focused and very strategic. So exit planning and creating an exit strategy is a lot more than just selling a business. It's about exiting your business successfully, which will be different depending on the business and depending on the owner themselves. But it involves the business with all its various elements. It also involves the owner understanding their needs, their goals, as well as ensuring they have enough money at the end of the day to enjoy their life post-exit. So it's my goal for every owner to realize a return on investment for all the years of hard work. And more importantly, I want to see owners prepared for any unforeseen events that may happen, because it is incredibly soul-destroying seeing someone in an awful predicament and not being able to help them, or even realizing that if only they had spoken to me a few years before, things would have been different. So I want to see owners taking back control. I want to see them in the driving seat, and I want them to know with absolute clarity where they are, where they're going, and have a plan to get there, which will then allow them to get a return on investment for all their years of hard work, but also crucially to be prepared for what life may throw at there, because at the end of the day, none of us knows what's around the corner. So to finish off, I'd like to leave you with a key takeaway. Sellers tend to focus on price, but buyers tend to focus on value. So to make your business sellable, you need to think like a buyer. So I hope that's useful, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I think that was very, very useful, Cliff. Just looking at the visuals, it's just like, wow, there's it's you know, it's not that complicated, but it is like, but it's how you work on it. So I'm interested to see what questions everyone has.
Yeah, can I just say that was incredibly useful, and I was reiterate what you've just said. It sounds straightforward, but there's an awful lot of, there's an awful lot to it. There's a lot of steps to take, but it's you can see the process quite clearly, and that's really useful to be able to see, where you would start from, where what you would work towards, and hopefully where you would end up. So thank you, Cliff.
Sure.
That's been really good.
Yeah, that really gelled for me when you came up with 90-day cycle.
Yeah.
When you were first talking, I was thinking about, okay, where am I? But the map, absolutely perfect. But also the clarity, control, consistency, and completion. It came together. And I thought, yes, this is actually doable. And it's just what you said, Mel. It's a case of taking each piece. And I think lately I've been looking at it as a jigsaw, but it's not. I think I'm now going to look at it as a map. Each thing that's happening, if I break it down into a visual map, so to speak, that's an actually much easier way to create the master plan. Plus, I love what you said, price is what you pay, value is what you get. Because I think that is so important for every business, and just keeping an eye on it, which is how you have a successful business. But I guess when you get the exit strategy, you just give me as much as I can get, I'm out of here, which is definitely at the back of my mind at the moment. But what, of course, you've got to do is continue with the consistent value. So that's not really a question, it's a statement, but it's almost like I've had one of those epiphanies, and you suddenly think, hang on, I'm doing it anyway. Now plot it.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
That's why that's the whole aim of this. That's why I love what I do, is to see this. It's brilliant.
And even though, Cliff, it looks like there's a lot there, it's all manageable. It's all possible.
Yeah, I say I've done this myself. This is the process I've used, and so I've run a business and implemented the strategy. So I understand that there's a lot of work you have to do. You've got to run the business. You still got to keep on the day-to-day stuff. But you also need to work on your business and to put that plan into place. And so by breaking it down into 90-day cycles, working on key areas up to 5, no more than 5. I think more than that, you're going to fail. Sometimes you just work on one thing maybe for the next 90 days. But as long as you're making progress, as long as you're making that one step at a time, and it's about the moving averages. Sometimes you can have a brilliant week where everything is going right, and the next week's terrible. Or maybe the next month's terrible. But if you look back at the quarter or back at the year, long as the graph is going up, long as you're making progress, it's fine. So don't look at it on a day-to-day basis or week-by-week basis. Look at it on a month or a quarterly basis. And you're going to have bad days. You're going to have times where you're not going to be doing anything on your business except firefighting. So look at the whole thing in perspective and see, are you making progress? Are you moving forward? Have you improved your business from where you were yesterday to where you are now at the day later or a quarter later or a year later? So it's a long-term view, but it's taking little steps consistently.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. This is what I do with my own clients. And I think over the last few months, I've forgotten to apply it to myself and my business. It's so much easier to do it for somebody else, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. I fully agree.
Why haven't you done it? Like, what do we do? How do we go back? And I'm looking at currently it's 105 clients, and sitting there and working through them. And you're right, I'm right in the middle of firefighting at the moment. But I guess what I've got to say is I am here. I have that. I have the experience. Now stop. I think I've got to stop and pause.
Yeah.
That's what I've not been doing. So thank you. Today, I'm going to press the pause button.
That's really what's got in the military. When I was doing, I was on the Brecon Beacons, and we're told, right, go from point A to point B, and you've got a time limit. So you've got to get to that destination pretty quick, and you've got to run. The first thing is panic sets in. You just want to head off, and you guys take 2 minutes, calm yourself down, get the map out, plot where you are, plot where you're going, and make a way forward. Many guys just ran off and thinking they know where they're going, and end up going in the wrong direction, and they were kicked out. So it just tells you just pause, take a day or two, or maybe a week out, just to clear your head, get a good understanding of where you are, where you want to be, plot a route, and then take that step consistently.
Yes, I shall give instructions today so that I can write the instructions. Thank you. Brilliant. Now, I must see if I can get hold of your books, actually. I guess they're on Amazon, are they?
The first one is. The second one is just with my editor at the moment. So I'm hoping to publish that book, The Oven Ready Business, which is what we spoke about today, will be hopefully in Amazon by Jan, I'm hoping.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
First one's very good, so definitely go and grab it. Very useful.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely brilliant. Inspirational this morning. Oh, it's nice to be inspired on a Wednesday morning.
I'm glad. So did it make sense for you guys? Are you got any other questions around it, or need any help support? Because I'm sure Dave will be more than happy to assist.
Cliff, are you able to share those slides at all? Because I was making notes. Yes, I can look back at it, but it would be much easier for me to have it in front of me so that I can sort of see where I'm at. Is that possible?
Dave can send it to you, no problem.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So obviously rewatch the video as well, Mel, if you need to.
Yeah.
So obviously you've got Cliff's narration over the top. But yeah, I'll send out, like I did a few in the earlier weeks, sort of screenshots of bits so you can just sort of pin bits to it that you need to.
Yeah, I need to see it.
But really big, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be in your next week's video at the back of the wall, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Now, I must say these Wednesday mornings have been excellent.
Yeah.
It's just breaking it down, isn't it? And feeling like you've got a focus point, recognising what you are doing, seeing what you're lacking, and now finding out where we are. That's brilliant. That's absolutely great. How many more weeks have we got left, Dave? Is it just one or two?
Just the one. So we're going to come on to that now. So I'll just wrap up. So Cliff's just going to reshare the slides and then I'll finish it off. But yeah, coming into the final week, amazingly. Okay. So in preparation for next week, now you know how to grow your business, hopefully. You need to build a detailed plan so you can track and measure your progress against your forecast. So your homework for next week is to find out what is your projected profit and loss, what is your projected balance sheet, and what is your projected cash flow. And now that we've completed 11 sessions, we're going to look to complete the workshop next week. So we now know how to become exit ready. So next week, we're going to explain how you can build your three-way forecast and then go on to use this to track your actual performance versus plan to immediately identify when things are going adrift. And so you can quickly and effectively take action to get things back on track. So with that, I hope you look forward to coming back next week and finalising this session. But yeah, I really appreciate Cliff coming on today and giving us insight, and thanks everyone for your questions.
Thank you very much. Inspirational speech.
Have a great week.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.